Welcome to The Jeweler's View. I'm Courtney Gray. I've spent nearly 30 years in this industry, running schools, doing custom work, coaching, consulting, and working with makers at all stages. Over time, I've started to see the patterns, the things that actually move a creative career forward, and the things that can quietly hold it back. I built this podcast to cut through the noise, less time in your head or down the research rabbit hole, and more time building something real. Let's get into it. Most makers have some idea of who their customer is. At least they think they do. And a really common answer I hear is something like, it's kind of like me, right? We make for ourselves. Sometimes that's true, especially in the beginning. You're making work that you love, work you would wear, work that feels exciting to create. That's not wrong at all. In fact, that's where many of us begin finding our voice. But eventually, there comes a point where it's worth pausing and asking, is that still true? Because maybe you're designing for a version of yourself from 10 years ago. Maybe you're creating for someone who shares your values, but has a very different life. Or maybe your work has evolved and quietly started attracting different people than it used to. And this matters a lot more than people realize, because understanding who resonates with your work is really one of the first pieces of the visibility puzzle. I think people often assume customer work comes later. Like first I make the work, then later I figure out the business side. But knowing who your work connects with influences almost everything. Think about this. How you write your social posts, what stories you tell, who you engage with, where you spend your time, what shows do you choose, whether Etsy makes sense, whether galleries make sense, how you present the work and how you price the work. And if this piece is a little fuzzy, everything downstream gets fuzzy too. This is actually a huge section of what we work on inside weeks 3 and 4 of Transform. Because many people come in thinking, I need more visibility, I need more followers, I need more eyes on my work. But before we jump into visibility, we spend time doing something a little deeper. We start asking those questions. Who already responds? What themes keep repeating? What values show up? What emotions show up? Who keeps appearing? Because if you're trying to become visible to everybody, you often end up visible to nobody. We do ideal customer work, but probably not in the way people expect. We're not sitting there building some fictional person named Susan with a favorite coffee order and a dog named Max. We're looking for patterns. We're looking for evidence. We're looking for clues. People tell us things all the time. Sometimes it's direct and sometimes indirectly. Questions to ask. What pieces get picked up first? What pieces get tried on? What gets saved online or shared? And what gets comments the most? And if you haven't sold much yet, stay with me. That's okay. You still have data. Watch what stops people, what they linger on, what they ask questions about, and what they send to friends. People tell us things constantly. We just miss it because we're often staring 6 inches from the bench. We're thinking about, should I have used a different stone? Should I have changed the finish? Maybe this design isn't right. Meanwhile, somebody else is connecting with something completely different. This gets interesting too, because maybe you're thinking, okay, Courtney, but I don't meet my customers. Maybe your work sells through a gallery. Maybe it sells through stores, your retailers. Maybe you wholesale. You can still learn. So here's some questions. Which pieces reorder? Which pieces sell fastest? What price points move? What feedback does the gallery owner hear or their staff? And what pieces tend to sit there longer than you maybe like? Ask the store owners. They're your partner. They should be. What are customers saying? Who buys this? What else are they purchasing? And what surprised you about that customer? Your galleries and retailers can become incredible sources of information if you ask. And this part really matters. This isn't a one-time exercise because your work evolves. You evolve. Maybe you start a new line, maybe materials change, maybe your confidence changes, maybe life changes. So this isn't figure it out once and never revisit this. This becomes a practice of paying attention. Your work is already having conversations, and I think many times we assume we need more answers, when maybe what we really need is to become better listeners. Because the clues, they're usually there. They're sitting on the table, they're in comments, they're in questions, they're in purchases, they're in stories. You just have to notice them. So if you're listening and thinking, okay, I know I need stronger support beneath all of this, that's exactly why I created Transform. We cover so much more than visibility and customer connection. We dig into pricing, yes, even with the changes in metal costs, systems, organization, communication, presentation, workflows that work for you and make life a little easier, confidence around your numbers, and building a business that actually supports the life and creative practice that you want to create. Not the guy next door, not what it looks like on Instagram, right? Real life. And if you're not ready to jump into the full course yet, no worries. Or you'd like to get a feel for how I teach, my free class, Systems That Save Time, is really a great place to begin. You'll walk away with some practical tools you can start using right away, and it gives you a taste of the work that we do together inside Transform. You'll find both the free class and Transform details at CourtneyGrayArts.com. I want to thank you for being here, and I will see you next week on The Jeweler's View. Onward and upward. I'm glad you're here. This path takes a lot, especially when you're building something of your own. If you want to go deeper, I share key takeaways and additional teaching through my email list at CourtneyGrayArts.com. Keep going. This part matters. I'll see you next week.
Singing bowls and stories untold. Yeah, here's to the dreams and how we make them, to howling at the moon, to worries and loss, sitting in solitude, to feeling a little bit pissed off. Here's to the grace we have awakened,